You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by the Choctaw Nation. The Choctaw people have a rich history and a bright future. At the Choctaw Cultural Center, you can take part in a story 14,000 years in the making. Stroll through our immersive exhibits portraying Choctaw life from the moment our ancestors emerged from the Nani Weha in Mississippian homelands to the Trail of Tears, where we lost so many loved ones, and finally to the modern-day tribe making a positive impact on local communities throughout southeastern Oklahoma. Try your hand at our social dancing and stickball and learn more about our vibrant culture through demonstrations, workshops, and classes. The kids will have a blast in our Luxie Activity Center. The Choctaw Cultural Center is more than a museum. It's a living, breathing experience. Visit choctawculturalcenter.com to plan your visit. This episode is brought to you by Hope is Alive. Hope is Alive exists to radically change the lives of drug addicts, alcoholics, and those who love them. Join us on August 11th at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum for a celebration of hope featuring guest speaker Tim Tebow and musical artist Ben Fuller. Find out more and get your tickets at HIA10.com. This podcast is brought to you by the Oklahoma Beef Council. On behalf of Oklahoma's beef farmers and ranchers, we want to remind you that beef can be part of a heart-healthy diet. To find heart-healthy beef recipes, go to oklabeef.org/recipes. Link below. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode up in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Today we are in Cowboy country. I love coming up here because I am an OSU fan. And it's fun to come up and have a coffee. And I didn't have any cheese fries yet, but I might sneak some on the way home. It's just the greatest place in the world. My guests today are Morgan Pfeiffer and Gretchen Mafi to talk about meat science. We are at the Department of Animal and Food Sciences at OSU, and it's going to be a very insightful episode today. We love talking about most of the meat stuff, especially in Oklahoma because it's such a huge industry, but also because of our awesome sponsors and partners, the Oklahoma Beef Council, who have set us up today. So excited to dive into your stories, but before we dive into the meat stuff, ladies, tell me a little bit about you and how you ended up in this role at Oklahoma State. Who wants to go first?
I'll start. So I'm Gretchen Mafi. I am originally from Alney, Texas, and I grew up on a farm and ranch, rodeoing, showing livestock. I actually decided to go to college to be an accounting major, and so I could keep rodeoing and be an accountant on the side. But when I got there, I met the meat science professor, and I got involved in meat judging at Texas Tech. And from there, it's kind of history. So I went, received my bachelor's degree at Texas Tech and was a member of the meat judging team. I went on to Colorado State for a master's degree and then back to Texas Tech for a Ph.D. Kind of moved around. I worked at USDA in charge of meat grading standards when I finished up my PhD. Then I was at a small school in San Angelo, Texas for about 4 years where we got to build a meat lab and do a lot of really cool things. And I've been on faculty here at Oklahoma State in meat science for the past 17 years.
Okay. been around then, right? Seen a lot of the country. Yeah, it's really cool. Morgan, what about you?
So mine's a little shorter, but I grew up in Colorado on a ranch, so really similar kind of backgrounds, and then came to OSU, and I was going to be an attorney. That was my goal. I was a double major in ag communications and animal science, and I took the class to meat judge, and I thought I was really bad at it, but Dr. Mafi taught me everything, so she was my meat judging coach. And then I fell in love with the industry while I was judging and all the people, and that changed my whole career path. So I ended up staying here for both my master's and Ph.D. And then I actually worked in industry for a little bit at the Beef Council and the American Meat Science Association before I came back. So I've been back since December of 2020.
Okay, so I'm in the presence of 2 doctors.
Yes.
Amazing. I am the odd one out. I think the only chance I've got of getting a doctorate is maybe if my university makes me an honorary doctor. That's probably it. Haven't done my master's yet, but, well, who knows? Maybe I'll get a sponsor for the podcast that'll give me a free education, and maybe I'll do it then. But yeah, that's... both of you obviously grew up kind of on the ranch and it seems you have a love for, just the outdoors, and I mean that's extremely hard work, as we've talked about many times on this podcast, and people who live under a rock think that ranching is a fun no, it is fun, but it's not an easy job. There's a lot that goes into it, and I'm sure everyone that you see in this building that's either grown up on a ranch or is close to it has that work ethic, right? Like it's something that is hard to replicate, I think, especially in today's world where we grow up and we just want to get a white collar job and stick to our iPhone and not kind of raise our finger. But you guys are probably used to getting up at 3:30 in the morning and milking everything and doing all the ranching stuff, so it's a fun childhood, I'm sure.
For sure. The unique thing about the meat industry is, and even our Department of Animal and Food Sciences, we have students from all backgrounds, and so rural and urban, and they get a passion for meat science, and there's so many unique job opportunities, whether it be out on the ranch or back in a facility or in academia. There's so many cool opportunities, so that's a really unique thing about meat science.
Yeah. What kind of surprises, I guess, Morgan, what surprised you when you came here, right? Both of you, right? You didn't come to, you didn't expect to be in this role, and you were kind of probably just taken back by it. So what kind of surprised you both about meat science and judging as well, that you think, I want to be involved in that, I think that could be a place for me?
So I grew up in ag, but I had no idea that you could meat judge, and I had no idea that you could have a career in meat science. So I think the opportunity to meat judge introduced me to that, and then all the people that are involved, all the different walks of life they come from, it's just amazing. And the resilience of the people that work in the industry is crazy. So it was eye-opening for me, and I grew up in ag. So people that don't grow up in ag have no idea either.
Yeah.
The really cool thing about meat science is you're still working with live animals, or you have that opportunity, but you're feeding the world, and you're working with people who make it high quality, who make it safe, who market, who keep food on people's plates. So you're the branch of the whole industry, and you're reaching, and that is so unique. And when we talk about meat scientists, it's such a small group of people. We really are a family. We get to know everybody. As I've had the privilege to serve as the president of the American Meat Science Association for the past year, and we just held our annual convention in Minnesota, and there were about 1,000 attendees, and it's just so great to catch up. We're really lucky we get to host that annual convention in Oklahoma City next June. So great opportunity to show off and showcase what we have in Oklahoma.
Yeah, shout out to the new convention center.
For sure.
Thank you for building it. For people listening who maybe we're 6 minutes into this and they're probably thinking, what is meat judging? What is it? Just for people listening that might have absolutely no idea, and I'm putting myself on that list as well.
I'll start, and then she can add on. So it's a competitive event. So people golf, people play football. It's similar to that, but you judge individually, and then you put your scores together as a team. And so you learn about quality grading and yield grading, all these meat science things that are important to the industry, and then you go apply that in a competition setting. And so it's hard to explain without seeing. It would be really boring to watch, though. It's not like playing football. So
does it make you really hungry when you do it?
It's not not cooked. It's raw meat.
Right. But
so
you're looking at it's like walking into Texas Roadhouse, seeing that counter and thinking, I'd like some of that.
Yeah. But it's a very unique opportunity, but it introduces students to so many companies and individuals in the industry. So outside of just judging, you get to go to these places where there's tons of people that work in the industry and get to know them.
Yeah.
So in meat judging, we judge beef, pork, and lamb. So we judge carcasses and cuts both. Students on a collegiate level at a university can only be on that team 1 year. So we start those students in the fall of a year, and then they're on the team for the calendar year. So we teach them everything they need to know. They don't have to have experience. Like Morgan said, neither one of us knew about meat judging when we got here or got to our universities, and somebody taught us what we needed to know. And so that's really cool. You can take students that have no background, or then there's competitive judging in 4-H and FFA and meat judging also. And so we have some students that come in with a good amount of experience, but it's one of those things, it leads to opportunities to travel the country. We go to some of not the greatest locations, maybe like Freona, Texas, or Dodge City, Kansas, but to go into these really large packing facilities that might slaughter 6,000 head of beef a day or 25,000 hogs. It's a really eye-opening to the industry, and it exposes you to so many things. That unique opportunity is just invaluable and something we can't teach in the classroom.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, when you look at the meat industry, right, the beef industry, or just animals in general, it's such a massive industry in this country and all over the world too. And when, like you said, earlier, it's not something you generally wake up in the morning and think, I'm going to be in judging and I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life and, get my doctorate and do all that. But like you said, when you were both kind of open to it, it's exciting. It kind of draws you in. And I know there's like scholarships available as well, right? For students to get them into it. When someone comes to you and or maybe even similar to your own story, and you have the opportunity to go judge and you get a scholarship for it. After you do that, what is like the jobs that you could lead into? Obviously, you guys work for university, right? What is the jobs out there as well in the industry that people can come in and students are coming in to see, it's great, I have a scholarship for 1 year, but what's the greater picture? What does that look like for a career as well?
So there's so many things. So we have people that are in academia or maybe in government at USDA. They can be in food safety or meat grading standards, or they could be working with school lunch programs on the food safety side for different companies to make sure they're providing that safe, high quality product through food safety interventions, quality assurance. So those are unique opportunities. Sales and marketing of product, operations in the facilities, whether it be we have students that have gone on to manage entire huge facilities, research and development to make cool new products that you see at the grocery store. Like we have students that develop like the dino nuggets that you see that Tyson produces. So there's just, I could list so many things. Maybe you go back to certified Angus beef. We have alumni that are with certified Angus beef, Tyson, Cargill, Seaboard. The list just goes on of major companies to then even small companies. Yeah. So here in Oklahoma to across the United States, and then even globally if you have students that have an interest in going into some of these global markets. So
generally an idea, we want to be in the food industry somewhat, they come here and then that gives them a start, I guess, where they go, and then if they do the master's and PhD, it goes even further than that.
Most definitely.
Okay, yeah. That's a lot, super insightful, because, a lot of people generally, I think, speaking, they don't know how people get into that role, right? They just go to university, think, I might just get a business degree or go to an ag business degree, and then you go from there. But obviously, there's a lot more to it than and then especially if you get into the judging side as well. So, was it kind of similar for you? Like that's the similar story for you both. Like this is kind of how you got here, and I know you touched on it briefly earlier, but just the whole process and it's fascinating, right? When you look back and you're like, how have I ended up in Stillwater, Oklahoma, when you're growing up in, Colorado and Texas? So it's super fascinating.
I think so. I think that Meat judging just opened so many doors, and it helped develop a passion for something and an industry that is so critical to obviously our way of life and our economy and sustainable agriculture and just providing food. So I think that as you think about it and you think about what you can do through meat science, and then on top of that, giving back to training students for the future and the future of our industry, that really helps keep you going each day through your career. Mm-hmm.
How does the facility here and everything you guys do stack up to places around the country?
Like in our department?
Yeah, like just Oklahoma State's,
So we have a huge undergraduate population in our animal and food science department, one of the biggest in the nation. And within that, we have a lot of students that were like us and had no idea until they take that meats class that they really want to focus on meat science or food science. And so it's an introduction for them to take that, and then they decide, wow, I mean, there's tons of careers with a bachelor's in this area too. So they figure out through our classes that it's something that interests them. But I would say in terms of numbers and all of that, we stack up pretty high.
And then like specifically to our facility, so we are very unique, and we have the Food and Agriculture Products Center, which is attached to our Animal Science building. And that center was built with in mind of attracting industry to come here and do research and develop products. But we get to use that facility because it houses our meat lab, and it is one of the nicest in the country. It is a little over 25 years old now, so it's got some age, but it is state of the art. It is very large, and it has our ability for very hands-on work. So our students in our classes get to see the entire process of slaughter to sausage manufacturing, ham, bacon processing, every single thing meat. And that is unique in that regard because there's only a few universities in the country that can offer that, and our facility definitely helps set us apart.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference when you can see like start to finish, right? Rather than just, this is just a point in the process, but you've got to go somewhere else to see the rest of it. When you can see everything, it definitely helps, break it down and make it, visually is just much easier to learn that way, right? Rather than like, just imagine what could be happening here, but it's somewhere else, at the end of the country. How does that obviously like the greater impact here is when, the general population is going to the meat counter, right? Or they're, wherever they're going, if it's just a general store or if they're going to an actual, butcher shop or whatever it is, like how does that kind of impact what the customer sees? Like what, because at the end, like they're the last people in the line, right? Like you talk about that process. Obviously there's millions of points along that way, but what is the end process of everything you guys do to make sure that the end product and the end consumer is getting what they read on the label, I guess?
So one thing at OSU, and something we have been very fortunate, and we have another colleague, Dr. Ranjith Ramanathan, and he is a fantastic research scientist in meat science, and we've all been very fortunate to work in the area of meat color and packaging. And so to simulate how you would see that package in the store and to try to extend that color and shelf life of the product to improve sales, to improve quality and safety to customers that they see actually in the store. So we do that every day in research, and we've really been able to embrace that as kind of a niche in our research program here at OSU to bring those products to consumers. So we really feel like we're making an impact through what research we do with meat packaging and color to the store for consumers.
Yeah, and on the other parts of our mission, like education, we're teaching, obviously, students who go out and teach consumers or share the message. And we do some extension work. None of us have an actual appointment in that, but we, do some outreach, just like speaking about the quality audit and different research that we're doing at different events.
Yeah, it's, again, I'm going to say it's fascinating stuff because, I think when you look at something and you dive into it and you're like, there's so much that goes into just buying a steak at the store, right? Or, buying a cut of meat, or even a box from kind of, the local, a lot of the farmers now are kind of having their own stores, right? And it's really cool to see, because, they're selling it straight from kind of their own place, and they're not worrying about getting cut down and going to Walmart or whatever it is. So, Sherry Glazer was on the podcast, and she was talking about all the stuff that she's doing, and they opened up Glazer Farms, and it's it's a huge difference. But at the same time, like, education is key, right? And there's a lot of consumers out there that appreciate buying straight from the source, even though they might cost them a little more. They know where it's going, and they see her and her kids, and they're having a great time, and doing all that stuff. So it is really cool to see. And Sherry's kind of doing her thing. You're good. I don't mind doing the podcast. It's as long as you're not dying in the corner, we're good to go.
Okay, right? Sorry.
No, you're good. I have never had allergies at all, and I have allergies like for the first time this year, and it's just
I have them so bad.
Oh, it's
so bad. Sorry.
I've lasted 10 years without having them, and I've been here 10, 12 years now, and now it's caught up with me. And now I feel your pain. It is the worst thing ever. What I was getting to was, obviously, Sherry has a big kind of role, especially in the Beef Council as well, but how has it been different for women in the industry? That's what I'm trying to get to. How has it been different for you, getting into the industry when you did, compared to, because a lot of people probably look at the beef industry and just think men, farming, ranching, jeans, boots, hard work, right? They don't think of doctors and men and women in a lab somewhere talking about science. So what has it been like for you both to kind of, I guess, be a part of just this female surge in the industry?
So I can start. We were talking about, like, if you had who your first, like, female mentor was, or teacher, that person in the industry. And I think back, and it was hard for me to even think of any professor in college. I thought of a couple, but it's changed so much. But there's definitely been people that have paved that way before me. There were people that I think of that are true leaders that have developed that. But you go and you look at our meat judging teams, you look at our student population, you look at our industry, and you just continue to see more women that are leaders and running companies and making that big difference and influencing future generations and paving that path. And I think that is something that's unique. I've never thought of it as a woman coming into the industry, and I never felt excluded or left out. You just went in, like you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, that work ethic and things that you do. I think that if you have that and you have a passion for it, you're going to be successful in whatever you do.
And I think I'm fortunate because I came when there was enough women, already in the industry to be your role models and to pave the path. So I would be that next generation, I think, where it was like, well, we can do it. There's, women like Dr. Mafi doing it. So yeah. I think, and it's gotten that way even more so now.
Must be cool to have your mentor in the room. Like you're both on, you're on the podcast. Like it's, and especially, people probably they look at the FFA and they look at the groups that are coming in, and, like you mentioned earlier, like rodeo and horse riding, that's probably where the kind of, it starts, right? Because, you grow up on a ranch as a woman, you think, I want a pony, I want to ride horses, I want to do that. And then you get into, this kind of like your gateway into the agricultural side of things, rather than, brushing horsehair in a lab instead, right? Which, both are a lot of fun, I'm sure. Which reminds me, I need to get back on a horse, because, like, I had the worst experience as a kid, and I'm like, I've been out here long enough now, I should probably get back into it. It was not a good experience at all. I thought I was going to bite my hand off, but I was like 9, so it's fine. The other kind of thing that I'd love to touch on as well is how you guys, obviously you're in this role and your careers are progressing, and Gretchen, you're president of the American Meat Science Association, and Morgan, you're involved in the beef audit as well. Like, how do you and why do you progress up like that? Obviously part of it's the work ethic, but on a deeper level, like, why don't you just come to work and do your job every day instead of just being like, you know what, I want to do that instead and kind of progress? So individually, I think if you could talk about just why you want to be, at a higher level, and why you want to progress and do bigger things in the industry instead of just being in a lab and judging meat.
So I think that goes back to growing up and probably the work ethic that our parents instilled and the things that you learn along the way, and you just, a passion that you develop, and you want to give back and contribute and really be able to make a difference in other people's lives and make a difference in the industry to positively influence the future. For me, that I would say those two things, like how I was raised and those values that my parents instilled, and then just everything I've ever done, I've done it with extreme intensity probably, so that helps, because there is, there are, when you have and you try to find that work-life balance, those are things we talk about a lot. I don't really know what that means.
Doesn't exist.
But I think that when you look at the opportunities and you just want to take advantage of what is there for, and to show other people those opportunities as well.
Well, what's the kind of role of being the president, of the association? What does that look like?
So, as the president, you preside over the board of directors. We have monthly meetings. We had our large annual meeting recently. We have so we're on a fundraising campaign right now to raise money for it's called Meet the Future. So for talent development, as well as disseminating science, growing our global membership. So we have a very well laid out strategic plan. We have a staff of about 5 to 6. So I have a lot of weekly conversations, or at least bi-weekly, with the CEO, but that opportunity to get to interact with those other industry leaders that are on the board of directors or on our development council to raise funds, that's one of the really key connections that you get to have. So those are a lot of things that I got to do and be a part of. It was extra time, of course, but really enjoyable time.
Yeah. Well, and connections as well, right? From being in that role and meeting people and learning new things, and especially if it's, you're talking about impacting not only the nation itself, but like globally as well. It's kind of a big deal, right?
Right.
Well, what about you?
So,
with the audit as well.
So the audit is a research project that's been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
And we do it every 5 years, and we work really hand in hand with Texas A&M and Colorado State to collect data about the beef industry. So kind of a snapshot of where we're at right now. And we're to the point where we're going to share the last 5 years. So what we found, and this is important for everybody in the industry, right? So the people that are processing the animals, but also the people raising the animals, because we're able to tell producers, this is what you're raising, this is kind of the goals we need for the next 5 years. And so we worked on that really heavily, our graduate students, and it's kind of like everything we've talked about, it's a training opportunity. So I was a graduate student in 2016 when we did it, and I learned about it, and now I'm on the other end of it. So it's a great training program too.
Yeah. What exactly are you auditing? Like what? You've got plenty of time if you want to nerd down into it.
So it's a big snapshot. So it kind of happens in 3 phases. So the first phase is interviewing anybody who buys or sells beef. So all types of companies and people, and we're asking them, what are they seeing? What do you want fixed? What can we improve? The second phase is going in those packing plants and actually collecting data on what's running through those plants. So hide, color, everything you can imagine, we're trying to collect it. What kind of ear tags those animals have, every little detail. And then what quality of meat they have, all of that. And then the third phase is bringing all those people together and talking about it and setting goals for the next 5 years.
Okay.
So
that's a lot of data, right?
It's a lot of data.
Was it, obviously because the only, big thing people talk about in the last 5 years is COVID. Did that affect anything?
It affected our data collection. So typically we try to run kind of calendar years. So we would have collected from like January to December of 2021. Well, because of all of COVID and everything, it made it a lot longer. We didn't really ask like specific questions, about COVID, but it would come up, and oftentimes everyone talked about how resilient the producers were through it, and the packers, and everyone in between. So it was constantly that positive message of, when the world shut down, we kept feeding the world.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. So where do we go from here? Like, what's next, and what is kind of on the, on your 2023 calendar? We're halfway through the year. What's you working towards? And obviously, you've got another 5 years of auditing. I guess that's just the natural process, but just more day-to-day stuff. Like, what are you guys working on? Obviously, students generally aren't around in the summer, but maybe they are for some of the summer classes. Like, for people listening, kind of just tell us a little bit what you guys are working on at the moment.
So our graduate students would still be here in summer, and they trying to catch up on research because we're obviously really busy with teaching the first half of the summer, and so we're almost wrapping up new student enrollment. So we've enrolled our new freshmen and getting them in, and so we spend a lot of time, Morgan and I do, with that. But our grad students and catching up on some research. So we have a couple of different students working on different freezing versus thawing method, and what's most effective and how long, and ideal quality. We have a couple students working on different color projects. So I have a student working actually on a goat project. So we're in cooperation with Langston and doing that. So just a lot of things research-wise to catch up, and it's not very long till August and school will start over and Stillwater will be booming again.
Yeah.
Football season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost time to start classes, and like she said, we spend a ton of time teaching, so that consumes a lot, and then continuing to do research.
Where's the love for teaching come from? Because that's another kind of added thing, right? Like, a lot of people, like, I'm a golfer, right? People, they see that I've been sort of successful in golf where I was at, and they're like, you should give me a golf lesson. Like, absolutely not. I'm terrible at teaching. That's the last thing you want. But people have a gift in teaching, and I think it's a mind shift as well. Tell me, what's kind of why go into the teaching side of things?
I think for me, it's the moment that students understand something. So it's like that aha moment for them. So, and like she said, we have students from all walks of life. So I love taking a student that, has never seen a live hog and showing them that, teaching them about it, and then letting them see, everything in the meat lab and even try the pork chop from it, things like that. So I think for me, it's very rewarding. And then when they call you, later, and they're like, man, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be where I'm at.
Yeah.
I think that's the key, is what you see the students do and accomplish, and that's the driver behind it, is when those students really make a connection, they go to industry, they give back themselves, they impact somebody else. That's a motivation, and that's what gets you excited. There's a lot of days that you might not be excited, but it's when you see those students that really get passionate too, and really makes an impact. That's the motivation and excitement.
Are the students just from all around the nation or around the world as well?
We have both.
You have international students too?
We do.
So our department, we have, I believe the count right now is we have students from 44 states. Okay. In the department, so almost everybody, and then we would have a few international students. Graduate students, we would definitely have international students. Undergrads, just a couple countries.
Yeah, I'm thinking of, I'm from Wales in the UK, right, and sheep is big business in the UK, so much so that we export so much of it that it's actually really expensive for us to buy our own, even though there's, I think the stat is like there's 3 million people in Wales and 12 million sheep. Like, we're severely outnumbered. But that's like our business, and I can only think of people farming back home that growing up, that even if they knew what Oklahoma State was, they would have a huge opportunity to come here and learn and get away from rainy, dreary Wales and come to the tornadoes, the capital of the world. Tell me about kind of taking this away from what you do on the day to day. You Morgan, you grew up kind of in Colorado, mountains, beautiful scenery, wanted to be an attorney. And Gretchen, you kind of mentioned rodeo was kind of like your thing growing up. What do you guys do for fun? Like, what takes you, when you have time, you're not researching or catching up, like, what do you guys do for fun?
So my husband's family is still heavily involved in ag. That's what he works on the farm every day. So we have a lot of goats, and students show them. So we go to goat shows for fun, which is probably not fun for most people, but that's what we do outside of here. And then, I don't get back home very often, but it is nice, especially in the summer when it's cool there.
Yeah.
So for me, my husband and I have some Angus cattle. He works for the American Angus Association, so that out west of town, and so we're both really passionate about that and raising cattle and fitting them ideally, creating that ideal animal. For fun, I actually just started golfing, so we have something in common, except for I'm terrible at it, and I haven't been doing it very long.
The most frustrating sport in the world.
I would tend to agree. Yeah. I don't like doing things that I can't pick up pretty quickly, and this is not a quick activity. So he's gotten really into golf, so I decided that was something else we could do together. Yeah. So I'm trying my best, but it's a slow process.
Did you play like softball growing up or any sports like that?
I played a little softball, basketball, mostly running barrels and roping,
they
rodeo.
Don't translate, do they?
No, they don't. Rodeoing was my sport for sure. So. Do
you get any chance to do that, like jump on a horse anytime soon?
So I don't. When I left USDA, so I was in Washington, D.C., but when I moved back to Texas, I started rodeoing, running barrels again, and I did that for quite a while up here. And I was just working too much and didn't really have time, so I haven't done that for a while now, but...
I've been invited a couple of times to like that kind of small town rodeo stuff. I need to go. Every time I get invited, I have like a golf tournament or some conflict. But this summer I need to go because it just seems like the most fun. Go, especially like the small town ones, right? Like everyone's kind of sitting on the rails and just watching it. And you're like, this is real America.
It is. Awesome. I don't know that it's the most exciting thing you'll ever
probably
watch.
For me. But yeah, if I've never seen it before, I'll probably go once just to take it off the list.
So there's a lot of it's unique and it's something to enjoy, the summertime. A lot of times it's way too hot. I tell my mom that. I'm like, I don't know how we did this all the time. I cannot stand the heat.
Finishing up, I do have some fun questions. What is your favorite cut of meat and why?
A fillet for sure. Okay. I don't really like the extra fat, like the subcutaneous fat or kernel fat, so I don't have to cut that off if you have a fillet. So that's my favorite.
So if they're USDA prime, I really like strip loin steaks, New York strips. And if they're maybe not prime, I like ribeyes. Okay. So I would be pretty much a traditionalist too. Yeah. But yeah.
Do you have a favorite recipe? Or a family recipe that's been passed down?
So my mom's family is Greek.
Okay.
Like my grandpa came from Greece and
so smashing plates and all that stuff.
So this is not beef, but they'll cook a whole lamb, like open fire, cook it, and it's actually really good. So that would be a unique meat type recipe.
How often do you guys do that as a family?
Always on the 4th of July they would do it.
Okay,
so
recently?
They just did it. Yeah. And then like at our wedding they did it. Big family events. It's like the movie, honestly.
Well, something of like European, Greek kind of, the one thing that I think we need to get back into as a society, especially in the States, is like family eating around the table, right? And especially in Greece, there's like, you got aunts, uncles, grandparents, like there's probably 15 to 20 of you around the table. I miss that a lot, and we didn't do it too much when I was kind of growing up. Once a week we would have Sunday dinner, like a roast, but that's so much fun, right? Get away from your phone, just sit around and just tell stories or listen to your grandparents tell stories. Like those are memories that'll last for a lifetime. Do you have any recipes?
I don't know about specific recipes because I kind of wing it a lot on things, but I really do like to smoke meat, all kinds, chicken, ribs, you name it, beef items, whatever. I needed my brother's birthday is today, and I couldn't think of anything to get him, so I bought a whole tenderloin, smoked it yesterday. So that's his birthday present. So that there's a few things that I've found that I really like to make that are kind of unique. I found a really good meatball recipe that I like. A lot of the Instapot is like changed cooking, I feel like, so you can do some cool things that way. But yeah.
That's a science in itself, right? Cooking meats, right? Roasting and doing.
Oh yes, barbecue competitions. I mean, they've gotten so popular, and it's an art as much as it is a science. And the people that I don't cook good brisket, and to me that is really an art. I've tried a ton of things. There's some places you can go and learn about cooking brisket, and those people that compete, that's really cool that they have it down. And it still goes back to, you can know everything, and it's in the quality of the meat. If you don't start with a good cut, you're probably not going to get a good one out. So.
Yeah. That one of the places I've been when my parents come into town is we got a butcher barbecue stand in Wellston, and kind of they started just as a stand, and now they have a proper restaurant there, and they won a bunch of awards nationally for smoking meats and stuff. And I'm like, this is like actual science. A lot of people buy a Traeger grill and they have an app, and that's probably the way I would do it because I'm terrible at cooking. But I mean, just the passion that goes into it, and the recipes, and just the time it takes to do everything, I'm sure it's pretty soothing. A lot more soothing than golf, for sure.
I do get really frustrated though when you do something exactly the same and it doesn't turn out the same way though. It is frustrating.
Yeah. But again, I mean, you get to taste great food at the end of it, hopefully.
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully you haven't wasted a lot of meat at the end of it. Or you can feed the dog or something instead. It's always used. Moving things on to just Oklahoma State stuff in general, what is your favorite Oklahoma State sport?
I guess football. I don't know.
I guess.
Yeah.
You can say you don't have one. It's fine.
When I was in college, I really liked watching the women's basketball team, and now they're picking back up. So I think they'll be really fun to watch in the future. But football, there's so much excitement on campus. I think that's the best part. So many alumni come back, you get to see old friends, and it's a different town during football games.
Is the parking lot behind us full of people smoking meats and tailgating and stuff? That's the fun part, right?
Yeah.
You add meat industry into tailgating and football. The greatest, I think, one I came to, some guy was cooking quail, and I was like, what is this? He goes, oh, try this. And I was like, it looks like a chicken wings. Quail. I was like, wow, I'm coming back next game because I want that again.
So I would say football for the on-campus atmosphere is awesome. I watch all sports. You don't get to watch the golf team very much. I'm an avid Victor Hovland fan. So that I watched golf long before I played it. So that was really cool. But then the baseball team and the excitement around the baseball team and the softball team are really cool. Our facilities, so the sports atmosphere is great. Yeah. I know it may not be some places, but it's unique to Stillwater and OSU. So,
do you have any students that are athletes on any of the teams? Yeah.
Mostly football and wrestling. We have
football and then wrestling. Of course, we do have several on the equestrian team, being the Department of Animal and Food Science.
Yeah. Any misconceptions about what you guys do, or any surprises that people are just wait a second, that's what you guys do? What was some of the things that maybe you guys learned when you first got into the job, or just misconceptions that people have no idea about that they need to be just educated a little bit on?
I think the biggest misconception is students will say, what are you doing? And you're going into meat science, and people will say, oh, you're going to be an inspector. No, you're going to be so many other things. You might be an inspector, but you're probably not going to be an inspector. You're going into, there's so many other opportunities. So I would say that's the biggest misconception that I hear and see, and we have to explain.
And there's little things all the time, people will say, oh, I'm eating this. No, that's not what you're eating, but I mean, at least you know it's meat, I guess.
Yeah, true. Well, ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure. Doctors, I should say. That's awesome. I think it's the first time I've ever been in the presence of 2 doctors in the same room, so it's a win for me today. For people listening, if they have someone who has a kid, son, daughter, or niece, nephew that is maybe in college or thinking about going to college, that does FFA and wants to get into, just learn more about it, like you ladies did. This is not something that you thought you were going to do until you got here, right? So where do they go? Who do they reach out to? Is there a website they can go to learn more things, or an open day you guys have? What's the process for recruiting new scientists?
So we would love for them to contact either one of us. Our departmental website, where our contact information is afs.okstate.edu. So that is Department of Animal and Food Science, so AFS. So they can go on there. Our email and phone numbers will be there, so they can reach out directly to us. We would be happy to help at any time.
But yeah, thank you so much for people listening. I'll put the link in the description, and we will catch you next episode. Cheers. Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by the Choctaw Nation. The Choctaw people have a rich history and a bright future. At the Choctaw Cultural Center, you can take part in a story 14,000 years in the making. Stroll through our immersive exhibits portraying Choctaw life from the moment our ancestors emerged from the Nani Weha in Mississippian homelands to the Trail of Tears, where we lost so many loved ones, and finally to the modern-day tribe making a positive impact on local communities throughout southeastern Oklahoma. Try your hand at our social dancing and stickball and learn more about our vibrant culture through demonstrations, workshops, and classes. The kids will have a blast in our Luxie Activity Center. The Choctaw Cultural Center is more than a museum. It's a living, breathing experience. Visit choctawculturalcenter.com to plan your visit. This episode is brought to you by Hope is Alive. Hope is Alive exists to radically change the lives of drug addicts, alcoholics, and those who love them. Join us on August 11th at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum for a celebration of hope featuring guest speaker Tim Tebow and musical artist Ben Fuller. Find out more and get your tickets at HIA10.com. This podcast is brought to you by the Oklahoma Beef Council. On behalf of Oklahoma's beef farmers and ranchers, we want to remind you that beef can be part of a heart-healthy diet. To find heart-healthy beef recipes, go to oklabeef.org/recipes. Link below.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.